So ngayon, tutungo naman tayo from the self-employed category to the voluntary type of coverage. So ano naman ito? This is non-mandatory. It's a non-mandatory registration and payment of social contributions shall be made by the following types of members. Non-working spouse, isa-isahin natin mamaya. Former OFWs, dating OFW, ngayon hindi na. So, but they opted, no? They want to continue their contributions, so they may be considered as a voluntary member. Or those who are formerly considered as self-employed members, or former employed members, but they opted, no? They wanted to continue paying their SS contributions, they can do that as a voluntary member. So for more definition, what is the coverage, no, or who are covered as voluntary members? So they are subjected to the following conditions. A member who is 60 years old and above, but not yet 65 years old, with 120 contributions or more, may continue paying as a voluntary member until he or she reaches 65 years old to avail of full benefits. And second, a member who is 65 years old and above with less than 120 contributions may still continue paying their contributions as a voluntary member until he or she completes the required 120 contributions to be eligible for retirement pension. So sa end po ni SSS, we also want our members na ma-target po ang retirement monthly pension. Para po kasi no, sa monthly pension, at the end of the day, maliit man yan o malaki, that's forever. Hanggat kayo po ay nabubuhay, ay may aasahan kayong monthly pension mula kay SSS. So ang ating minimum requirement to avail of the monthly pension under the retirement benefit ay at least 120. Kaya po ito yung nasa slide natin, napapayagan natin ang ating mga members na mag-continue magbayad ng kanilang contribution para ma-reach po yung 120 no dito sa 65 years old and above, because on our end nga maganda po, we want you also to maximize no at makuha yung monthly pension at the end of the day. So as to the non-working spouse, sino naman po ito? Spouses who devote full time to managing the household and family affairs may be covered by the SSS on a voluntary basis. So sila ang mga legally married to a currently employed or self-employed SSS member. So sila po ang considered na non-working spouse. And kindly take note, their contribution is 50% of the working spouse's last posted monthly salary credit, but it should not be lower than 2,000 pesos. So, ngayon po, no? Dati, kung maalala nyo po, 12% ang ating contribution. But, as of 2021, ay nag-increase po tayo by 1% only na 13%, okay? Wherein sa ating mga employed members, they have this employer-employee sharing na out of the 13%, 8.5% ay shouldered by the company and 4.5% ang kinakaltas sa payslip ng mga empleyado, okay? So yan sa mga employed members natin na baka nandito rin po sa webinar na just so you know. But specifically for our topic on the self-employed and voluntary members, since they do not have an employer, okay, wala silang employer kasi self-employed, sila mismo yung boss sa sarili nilang business. Or sila, yung kanina, no, sa isa natin, those working in the informal sector, they're also considered as self-employed. And voluntary members such as the non-working spouse, since they do not have an employer, they get to shoulder the entire 13%. So every time they pay their contributions, it's the whole or entire 13%. Presently, the minimum monthly salary credit is 3,000 pesos, and ang katumbas po nun or the corresponding minimum amount of contribution ay 390 peso. Meanwhile, the maximum monthly salary credit ay 25,000 pesos and the maximum amount of contribution ay 3,250 pesos. But kindly take note, for the land-based OFWs, the minimum monthly salary credit is still at 8,000 with a corresponding minimum contribution of 1,040 pesos. So, ito po, napapakita lang natin ang contribution schedule as of 2021. Baka po sa screens niyo, kung gamit niyo ay cellphone, baka maliit itong picture natin. Pero kung desktop or laptop, I think you can view it more. But rest assured, this is present in our website. And you can see this online, no? Sa mga online platforms natin, we have made this contribution schedule available. Just to serve as a guide natin, no? So you can see, for instance, I'm a voluntary member. No, this one is for the self-employed. No, I'm a self-employed or voluntary member, but particularly for the self-employed, I have a business. Let's say, and my range of compensation ay around, let's say, 14,000 pesos. So you would have to look kung saan po ba magpo-fall yung 14,000 pesos mo. Nasa ang range of compensation, and then may corresponding po yan na employees compensation for our self-employed members, no, because you are also assured with regard to your EC benefit. So you would have to look for that particular range of compensation at tignan lang po kung magkano yung magiging contribution ninyo at the end of the day, no, based on this table, okay? So it depends. So the amount of contribution, it depends upon your monthly salary credit, which you can find here in the range of compensation. So, kailangan po ay tignan maigi yan. So, you would know, you would be able to determine kung magkano po ba yung dapat na SSS contribution ninyo. So, this one naman ay para po sa mga voluntary members natin and non-working spouse. Some of you might ask, Ma'am, bakit po yung iba walang mandatory provident fund? Nakikita ko po sa table na ito ngayon, no? Walang mandatory provident fund na amount. Yung iba meron. So yung mandatory provident fund po natin, that's the WISP or the Workers Investment and Savings Program. So hindi ko po ito i-discuss because later, for our third topic, our speaker will discuss that one. So ngayon, kung may mga katanungan kayo about it, i-park po muna natin yan and you can wait for the third topic for our Provident Fund Program or the WISP, okay? So, but what we're trying to say here, some of the voluntary members, depending upon their particular monthly salary credit, no, in the range of compensation, may iba na merong mandatory Provident Fund Program, may iba naman, okay, may iba naman na wala. So, titignan mo yan kung saan po ba naka-correspond ang iyong range of compensation or the monthly salary credit. Okay? And then this one naman po ay para sa ating mga OFW. So if you have family members na considered as OFW, they can check the particular amount of their contribution based on this contribution schedule. Ngayon naman po ay dadako tayo sa topic na ano ba yung mga rules, no? Is there a rule? That's number one. Are there rules as to the change of monthly salary credit for the self-employed and voluntary members? And how do we do that? For the self-employed members, we need to remember that those who are below 55 years old, sa mga nandito po na 1,301 attendees natin, no? Dumadami po tayo, no? So those who are below 55 years old, they shall be allowed to change his or her monthly salary credit without limit in frequency and in number of salary brackets in a given calendar year. But take note, it shall be in no case, no, shall it be lower than the prevailing minimum monthly salary credit for the self-employed member. So if you are below 55 years old, you will be allowed without limit to change in the number of frequency as well as in the number of salary brackets na gusto po ninyong gawing contribution, no, kay SSS. Meanwhile, a self-employed member who is 55 years old and above, that should be a self-employed member who is 55 years old and above, shall be allowed to increase his or her monthly salary credit only once. So kapag kayo ay 55 years old na, only once na lang po kayo papayagan mag-increase in a given calendar year and by one salary bracket from the last posted monthly salary credit. So kung ngayon ay hindi pa kayo 55 years old na mga self-employed members, so you can already increase it without limit. But if you're already 55 years old, Once in a given calendar year na lang po tayo pwede mag-increase ng ating monthly salary credit. Meanwhile, no, for the voluntary members, those who are below 55 years old shall also be allowed to change their monthly salary credit without limit in frequency and in number of salary brackets in a given calendar year, but in no case shall it be lower than the prevailing minimum monthly salary credit for a voluntary member. And to those naman po na 55 years old and above, no, take note of that particular number, 55. If you're above 55 years old already, 55 and above, you shall only be allowed to increase your monthly salary credit once in a given calendar year and by one salary bracket only from the last posted monthly salary credit except for the following cases. Ano-ano ito? First, in case of a change in his or her membership type from employee or self-employed to voluntary member for the first time. So let's say, ikaw ay 56 years old na, dati kang employed, at biglang retire. Early retirement ako kay company ABC, 56. And now, kahit ikaw ay retired na, parang you felt the need, no? Na you wanted to continue your contribution. You want to continue your contributions kay SSS. So now, as a voluntary member already, dahil dati employed ka, ngayon, voluntary member ka na kung magbabayad ka. And this is your first time to pay as a voluntary member. So since it's your first time, even though you're above 55 years old, you will be allowed to increase your monthly salary credit without limit. Okay? So yun yung mga exemption natin as to the ruling na 55 years old and above. Hope klaro po yan. And then second, in case of a higher maximum monthly salary credit under a new applicable schedule of contributions, kung kunwari tayo ay ang SSS ay maglabas ng panibagong schedule of contributions, so the member, the voluntary member, even if they're already above 55, they shall be allowed to increase their monthly salary credit up to the new maximum monthly salary credit provided, take note, provided that his or her last posted monthly salary credit corresponds to the new maximum monthly salary credit under the immediately preceding schedule of contributions. Okay? So yan po ang ruling natin, particularly with regard to having a new contribution schedule of contributions. Okay? And lastly, no limit shall be imposed in the case of decrease in monthly salary credit as to the voluntary member, but in no case shall it be lower than the prevailing minimum monthly salary credit. So even if you're above 55 years old, you wanted to lower down or to decrease your monthly salary credit, you will be allowed to do so, but syempre, not lower than the prevailing minimum monthly salary credit already.